Citron. Schöne Wohnung.
In the autumn of 1994, I spent a few weeks living and working with a group of other artists in what was once a monastery in a village called Plasy, about 100 kilometers outside of Prague. Yes, Bohemia. Nobody talked about the Czech Republic. Everything seemed to be Moldavia or Bohemia. It's getting more and more confusing Westerner these days. It's as though every time you turn your head, a new nation appears. But despite the dangers, it's exhilarating to be caught up in a moment of history when so many barriers are coming down. Barriers that seemed as if they'd been set in concrete. It's like rediscovering whole hosts of lost relatives, each with their own story to tell. But there are even more surprising things about the new Europe. Take this market just across the German border. It was entirely run by Vietnamese immigrants. So how are we going to make something of all these new worlds that are opening up for us? It's not only about trade. We need many different kinds of contact, cultural and spiritual. We need places and projects where these kind of contacts can occur. And what the Hermit Foundation seem to be doing in Plasy seems like a good working model. The Hermit Foundation are the organization responsible for managing the buildings. They're a group of people who are dedicated to preserving the monastery as a secluded place where artists, writers and musicians from East as well as Western Europe can spend some time living and working together, exploring what brings them together and what used to separate them. Like the Belgian artist Geert Bischop's work, which testified to a 4-day walk he made along the old border.
New places, new crossroads are for me interesting.
So communication and an environment for open communication seems to be important, more important than making products, maybe.
Sure. I mean, it's not none of the projects is really meant as something like make a beautiful show with beautiful products, or which can be beautiful reproduced somewhere in beautiful art journals. I mean, it's much more about working process.
Yeah.
And I mean, it doesn't matter if somebody's making huge sculpture here or just write one page of text. It's. I mean, this is the another approach. I mean.
Right. The monastery was enormous and divided into several buildings from different periods. We lived in one building and worked in the others. The main sites were a granary that contained wonderful spaces with the most delicate changing light. It seemed to encourage austere and classical works.
piece is called Fly Route, and all of the envelopes have flies and insects that were collected in the chapel, and then they were mailed to different parts of the world. So you have different countries represented: Portugal, Spain, New York, America, England, France, Germany, Czechia, Russia, Greece, Turkey. And the idea basically is about transmigration. So flies die here, and then they leave, they migrate, and they return. And so each envelope, in a sense, mirrors the concept of the cupola being a kind of transcendent niche, a place, you know, of imagination and fantasy. And they form a fly congregation. So the chapel is not really for humans, but it's for all the small insects and all the small animals and life forms that exist in the place.